On today's episode of Crash Course Geography, we will be talking about genetically modified foods. Genetically modified GM foods are foods that come from organisms whose DNA has been modified in a way that does not come naturally. An example would be through the introduction of a gene from a different organism. On May 19, 2009, the American Academy of Environmental Medicine called for an immediate extension on genetically modified foods, stating that GM foods pose a serious health risk. The AAEM concluded that there is more than a casual connection between GM foods and adverse health effects. GM foods pose a serious health risk in toxicology, allergy and immune function, reproductive health, metabolic, physiologic, and genetic health. Among the population, children are the most likely to be negatively affected by toxins and other dietary problems related to GM foods. In the U.S. population, the incidence of low birth weight babies, infertility, and infant mortality are all escalating. Multiple animal studies show significant immune dysregulation, including increase in cytokines, which are associated with asthma, allergy, and inflammation, all on the rise in the U.S. There are studies about GMOs possibly leading to cancer, causing new allergies, and interfering with antibiotics. The main GM crops, corn and soybean, are used mostly for feeding animals. Meat, milk, and eggs from animals fed with GM crops are eaten by people in many countries, including the United Kingdom. GM crops are also used in many processed foodstuffs eaten around the world, including cooking oils and other ingredients. The main GM foods eaten in a fresh state are alfalfa, squash, and papaya in the USA, tomato, papaya, and sweet pepper in China, and aubergine in Bangladesh. There are no fresh GM fruit or vegetable approved for consumption by humans in the European Union. Among the countries growing GM crops, the USA, Brazil, Argentina, India, and Canada are the largest users. They are grown in these major countries because genetic engineering offers a quicker and more precise way to achieve the same goal in one generation rather than 20. Genetically modified crops offer improved yields, amplified nutritional value, longer shelf life, and resistance to drought, frost, or insect pests. In Canada, GM crops are largely produced in Ontario and Quebec. Currently, there are 4 genetically modified crops available on the market, including canola, soybeans, grain corn, and sugar beets, with several other varieties approved by the government. In 2019, over 8 million hectares of GM canola was seeded in Canada, accounting for a 95% share of all canola seeded that year. Since the introduction of GM crops to Canada 20 years ago, it has become one of the leading countries to produce genetically modified crops worldwide. Some major concerns for consumers in Canada include whether GM crops should be labeled and whether they pose any serious risks to human health or the environment. There are many developments in the area of genetically modified food that the world can expect to become realized in the future. This includes things such as pigs that are resistant to disease, dairy cows without horns, and chickens that are resistant to bird flu. Sheep are also expected to become more productive in terms of wool and mutton production. There are plenty of factors at play, which include the management of risks and the approval of the international community. Government rules are also a barrier that can inhibit GMO developments. In the long haul, chances are that GMO food will bring about significant changes in food production. GMO foods affect the environment because the use of some GM crops can have negative impacts on non-target organisms and on soil and water ecosystems. For example, the expansion of GM herbicide-tolerant corn and soy, which are combined with herbicides, have destroyed much of the habitat of the monarch butterfly in North America. The economy is affected by this because GM crops could impact food availability by providing seeds which are immune to adverse climate conditions, have an effect on food access by increasing farmers' incomes, and under the same food usage conditions, biofortified crops could increase the nutritional status of households worldwide. Contamination can create serious economic losses for farmers who face being rejected from export markets that ban GMOs. Organic farmers suffering contamination can lose their organic certification and the premium they earn for their organic crop. An upside to the economy is that farmers who planted genetically modified crops increased their incomes by almost $19 billion in 2018 and reduced carbon emissions by 23 billion kilograms, or the equivalent of removing 15.3 million cars off the road that year. GMOs provide economic benefits to millions of consumers. They reduce agriculture-related greenhouse gas emissions, reduce soil erosion, conserve water, and substantially decrease the use of many agricultural chemicals. You might be asking, how can you avoid GM foods? Well, you could start by buying certified organic foods. This includes organic dairy, eggs, and meat because animals in organic farming are not fed GM crops like grain or soy. You can buy cane sugar to avoid eating sugar from GM sugar beets. You can choose products with the non-GMO Project Verified seal. And lastly, you can support farmers who reject GM, which means buy directly from farmers who do not plant GM alfalfa, corn, or canola soy.